Hello guys, welcome back to another Genshin video. So in today's video, I'm finally doing a Keqing guide for you guys. Keqing has a very unique and fast playstyle, and although she's considered the worst 5-star DPS in the game, many people still love her because she looks good, she plays nicely, and her animations look amazing. I recently built my Keqing, so I finally thought it was time that I made a Keqing guide to help you guys find out the best artifacts, weapons, teams, and talents to level up. Without further ado, let's get right onto the video. So first of all, let's take a look at all of her talents and passives. Although I wouldn't talk about people's normal attacks in most of my guides, this is actually a special case because Keqing's charge attacks are a big part of her playstyle. After you use her elemental skill and burst, you just want to load out a whole lot of charge attacks to do a lot of damage because the charge attack multipliers are actually pretty huge. If you take a look at the percentages, she will do 131% plus 147 right after each other. So if you do her charge attacks in rapid succession, you will do a lot of damage. And there's not really much else to talk about the normal attacks. All you need to know is that charge attacks are a big part of Keqing's damage. And now her elemental skill, Stellar Restoration, basically when you press it, you send out a little lightning stiletto that will actually go towards the nearest enemy if pressed, but if you hold it, you can actually aim where it goes. Now there's actually two ways you can utilize this stiletto. If you actually use the elemental skill again, she will teleport to the stiletto doing electro damage. But while the lightning stiletto is on the field and you do a charge attack, the lightning stiletto will actually explode into AoE electro damage. There's two main ways to play Keqing, which is Electro DPS and Physical DPS. If you're building an Electro DPS Keqing like I am, you will always want to tap the elemental skill again so you can teleport. Because one of her passives is after teleporting to the stiletto, your weapon will actually be infused with electro damage. But if you're building a physical DPS, it's always best for you to press it and then do a charge attack so you can get a physical damage charge attack and also get a little bit of electro damage on top of that. And now her elemental burst is the best looking part of the kit. Basically, Keqing will do a whole lot of slashes in a large AoE, and then the last final strike will do a lot of electro damage at once. If you take a look at the percentages, it will initially do 141%, and then the repeated slashes will actually do 38.4% 8 times with the level 8 skill. And then the last slash will actually do 302%. It has an extremely low cooldown of 12 seconds and an extremely low energy cost of 40, so you can get this pretty often. Her first passive is, like I said earlier, after recasting your elemental skill, while a stiletto is present, Keqing will actually get an electro infusion for 5 seconds. So this will be only used for Electro DPS Keqings. And her second passive is after using her elemental burst, Keqing's crit rate and energy recharge will be increased by 15% for 8 seconds. So after you use your burst, you'll actually have a little bit of crit rate to help out with your damage. And there you go, that's all for the talents. Basically, what you need to know is that her charge attacks are a big part of the kit to help you do a lot of damage, and depending on how you want to play your Keqing, recasting your elemental skill or doing a charge attack after casting it will give you different benefits. And her elemental burst is just a lot of electro damage for a period of time. The talents you would want to prioritize are actually the normal attacks and burst, and this goes for both physical and electro DPS. And her elemental skill can be leveled up last. Now let's take a look at her constellations. All of the constellations are kinda meh, like they're not bad, they're just really small damage buffs each time, but it's not really anything too crazy either. So I'm just gonna quickly read them all off for you guys. Her Constellation 1 is after teleporting to a stiletto, she'll do damage equal to 50% of her attack as AoE electro damage at the point she teleports and at the end of her teleport. Basically, you'll just do a little bit more damage each time you blink, and it's not really that too crazy. Constellation 2 is when hitting an opponent by Keqing's normal and charge attacks, and they are affected by Electro, they have a 50% chance of producing an Electro particle, which can happen every 5 seconds. Once again, this one isn't too crazy, it's just a little Electro particle here and there. But her burst is also already really cheap, so this one isn't really needed at all. Constellation 3 levels up her elemental burst. Constellation 4 is when Keqing triggers an electro-related reaction, her attack will be increased by 25%. Nothing too crazy, just a little damage buff. Constellation 5 increases the level of elemental skill. Constellation 6 is when Keqing does any attack, she will get 6% electro damage bonus for 8 seconds. And effects triggered by all those attacks are considered independent. This one isn't all that insane either, it's just a 6% electro damage bonus. Yeah, it's nice, but it's not really worth it for a C6. And there we go, that's all for Keqing's constellations. All in all, her constellations aren't really that worth it at all. You might see a tiny bit of a damage reduction if you see a C6 Keqing other than your C0 Keqing. It's really not all that important. Now let's talk about Keqing's weapons. But first, I want to get one thing out of the way before I start talking about anything. Keqing's best weapons, hands down, has to be the Mist Splitter with Forge and the Primordial Jade Cutter. They just have such huge crit damage substats, and their passives are actually insane. And Mist Splitter is actually a little bit better than the Jade Cutter. Freedom Swarm isn't good because it doesn't really benefit her at all. Skyward Blade isn't good on Keqing either because of its energy recharge substat, and its passives just doesn't really help out Keqing all that much. Although the Summon Shaper could be pretty good with a shield character, it's not actually used by Keqing that often, so I don't really recommend you try to strive for this weapon either. But if you are wanting a physical DPS Keqing, Aquila Favonia is definitely a good option as well because of its physical damage bonus substat. For the 5 stars, I definitely go Mist Splitter, then Primordial Jade Cutter, and then Aquila Favonia. Now let's talk 4 stars. The first weapon I'm going to talk about is Lion's Roar. The Lion's Roar is actually really good because it gives an attack percentage substat, which is pretty nice for damage, and it will also increase damage against opponents affected by Pyro or Electro. So this is really good for Keqing, especially if you want Electro damage dealer Keqing, because a lot of enemies will actually have Electro on them for a lot of time. But it does fall off at low refinements. If you have this weapon at like a high refinement, it gets really good in comparison to other weapons. But don't let that discourage you from building it if you don't have any other weapons, because it is still a great choice at refinement 1. But just be aware, it does a lot more damage at higher refinements. Also, a free-to-play option if you're wanting physical DPS Keqing is Prototype Rancor, because it gives a physical damage substat, and on hit, it will increase your attack and defense for a maximum of 4 stacks. So this is also a pretty nice free-to-play weapon if you are deciding to want a physical damage dealer Keqing. Now the next weapon is actually the Black Cliff Longsword. It has a crit damage substat, which is always really good for weapons, and after defeating an enemy, it will increase her attack by 12% for 30 seconds, which has a maximum of 3 stacks. This is also a pretty good weapon that you can get for free in the Paimon shop when it's in rotation, if you do wish a good amount. The only downside to this weapon is that its passive is pretty unreliable if you're fighting bosses, so this is mainly a great weapon if you're fighting big groups of enemies that you can consistently kill to get that attack boosting effect. But other than that, this is an amazing weapon. But probably the best 4-star weapon for Keqing is the Black Sword, which you can actually get from the Battle Pass if you decide to buy it. It has a crit rate substat, which once again is always great for weapons, and will increase the damage of normal and charge attacks by 20%. Which is really helpful for Keqing because once again, her charge attacks are a big part of the kit. It will also regenerate 60% of attack as HP when normal and charge attack hits score a crit, which can happen every 5 seconds. So this weapon is really good at increasing damage of her normal charge attacks, giving her a good substat on the weapon, and will increase her survivability all in one. So this is definitely the best 4-star weapon that you can get for your Keqing. So if you do buy the Battle Pass, I highly recommend you get this weapon if you are looking towards to building a Keqing. Another free-to-play option is actually the Inazuma craftable sword. I heard it's pretty good on characters like Ayaka, so it could be pretty good on someone like Keqing as well. I haven't seen anyone do any actual testing with Keqing myself with this weapon, so I'm not really sure how great it actually is, but it does have an attack percentage substat. It can also give you back energy after using your elemental burst if you have enough stacks after using elemental skills. So I recommend seeing someone do a Keqing damage tier list to see if this weapon would suit you. And there you go, that's basically all for weapons. If you're wanting an Electro DPS Keqing, I highly recommend you use the Lion's Roar. If you're wanting a physical, then Prototype Rancor. But for both playstyles, Black Cliff's Longsword and Black Sword are probably the best options, unless you have like a Refinement 5 Lion's Roar. That's when Lion's Roar becomes actually insane. And now the part you guys have probably all been waiting for, artifacts for Keqing. What should you want and what are the best artifact sets? First, let's talk about the physical DPS sets because they're the most straightforward ones. If you want to build a physical DPS Keqing, the best combination of artifact sets will actually be the Bloodstained Chivalry set along with the Pale Flame set. They both have a 2-piece set of plus 25% physical damage, so if you use them both together, they'll be the best pair. But you can also use 4-piece Bloodstain to increase charge attack damage by 50% and reduce his stamina to 0 after killing an opponent for 10 seconds. But just be aware, kinda like the Black Cliff Longsword, its passive is kinda unreliable and you have to kill enemies in order to proc it. But the even better one for physical Keqings is actually 4-piece Pale Flame, because when you pop her elemental skill, the initial stiletto will actually do damage, and when you charge attack, the explosion of the stiletto will also do skill damage. So that will actually give you the full passive of the 4-piece Pale Flame, allowing you to get up to 50% physical damage bonus increase. So I'd definitely say 4-piece Pale Flame is definitely better than 4-piece Bloodstain because it's more reliable, can proc on solo bosses, and on top of that, it will also increase your attack. Now for Electro Keqings, there are 3 main artifact set combinations you can use. You can use the 2-piece Gladiators and Shimenawas with 2-piece Thundering Fury, which is actually what I use. It's a great way to get more electro damage bonus and some great attack too. You could also run 2-piece Thundering Fury and 2-piece Noblesse because her burst is a big part of her damage as well, and if you want to run a more bursty Keqing, this is definitely a good way to go as well. And lastly, you can go 4-piece Thunder Soother. You never just want to go 2-piece Thunder Soother because it's honestly really useless. But if you use 4-piece, it will actually increase damage against opponents affected by Electro by 35%. So if you are wanting a team that has a lot of Electro characters, and you do see yourself proccing Electro really often, this can be a really good one, but it can get a little problematic if you are popping a lot of reactions and the Electro will go away multiple times. Which is why, me personally, I recommend running 2-piece Thundering Fury in Gladiators or 2-piece Thundering Fury in Noblesse because it's more reliable, it's always going to be there, and you never have to count on something to be there in order to do your damage. But those are the 3 best artifact sets for Electro Keqing. As for artifact stats, it's pretty much the same for every DPS character. You always want to try to get attack percentage, crit rate, and crit damage. You really don't need any energy recharge or Keqing because her burst only costs 40, so you don't really need to worry about that at all. For her sands, of course you should run attack percentage because that'll give a good boost to her damage. If you're running Electro Keqing, electro damage bonus is the way, but if you're running physical Keqing, physical damage bonus is the other option. And then the circlet is going to be crit rate or crit damage depending on your ratio. You always want to try to get a 1-to-2 ratio or a good ratio where you have high crit rate but low crit damage because that means you'll crit more often. For me, I have crit rate because my crit rate is kind of low on my Keqing, so I do have a crit rate circlet on. And there we go, that's basically all for the artifacts. Just to do a little bit of rundown, if you're doing physical DPS Keqing, you can run 2-piece Bloodstained with 2-piece Pale Flame. And in my opinion, 4-piece Pale Flame will be better than 4-piece Bloodstain because you don't have to rely on killing opponents to increase your damage, and if you do your Stiletto and Thunderclap damage right after another, you'll get the max bonus from Pale Flame immediately. Now for my Electro Keqings, 2-piece Gladiators and 2-piece Thundering Fury are always a good option, and you can also replace Gladiators with Shimenawas because they have the same 2-piece. 2-piece Thundering Fury and 2-piece Noblesse are great options too because her burst is a big part of her kit as well and helps to do a lot of damage. And lastly, 4-piece Thunder Soother if you are able to keep Electro on your enemies for a long time. If you do find yourself popping a lot of reactions and you don't see Electro on your enemies that often, then I don't recommend you run 4-piece Thunder Soother. But for the teams that do, then Thunder Soother is also a really great option. And for the main stats, of course you want attack percentage, electro damage bonus, or physical damage bonus depending on if you're physical or electro DPS Keqing. And then crit rate or crit damage depending on your own ratio. And for the substats, you want crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent as your main goals for your substats. And there we go, that's all you need to know about the artifacts. Now let's talk about Keqing teams. Keqing teams can be very flexible depending on who you want to play or how you play, so I'm actually going to go over some team synergies and some of the best characters to pair up with Keqing. Some of the best teammates you can run with Keqing is actually Qingqiu and Beidou. Qingqiu allows for a lot of hydro damage to be procced and electro charge reactions to be done when your Keqing isn't doing electro damage if you're an electro damage dealer, or if you're just physical, this is also just a great way to help increase your damage by a lot. Qingqiu does a lot of raw hydro damage, and his burst procs whenever you do normal or charge attacks, and that's very beneficial because charge attacks are really great for Keqing. Beidou is also basically the same like Qingqiu. She helps for a lot of off-field DPS and raw electro damage, and her burst can be triggered by normal attacks or charge attacks that are hit from Keqing. She's also Electro, so Keqing will be a great battery for Beidou, and Beidou could also be a great battery for Keqing. Some 5-star characters she actually pairs well with is actually Zhongli because he's Zhongli. He will shield Keqing and help her survive more because Keqing is pretty squishy, but he will also reduce everybody's resistance around her, so it will also help increase Keqing's own damage. Mona is also really amazing because she will help proc a lot of electro charge reactions, and her burst will actually increase the damage opponents will take from attacks once you burst her bubble. So this is also a great way to boost your Keqing's own damage and do tons of damage per screenshot. And lastly, animal characters like Venti, Kazuha, and Sucrose are actually great to pair with Keqing because her charge attacks actually do knock back people a lot, so if you do use a charge attack, you will usually have to run after the opponent you just hit if they are a small opponent and get flung back easily. Animal characters like Venti, Kazuha, and Sucrose will help them keep them in place, and when she uses her burst, it will help everyone stay in the AoE just in case any of them do want to move out. Even more combos you can run with Keqing is Keqing Official, especially if you're running 4-piece Thunder Soother, because that allows you to keep Electro on opponents way more reliably and proc that Thunder Soother extra damage. And also if you're running physical DPS Keqing, always having a cryo teammate on your team is also recommended because Keqing's already Electro, so if you have a cryo teammate, you'll easily be able to pop Superconduct and allow enemies to take more damage from your physical hits. Lisa's also here because Lisa actually reduces defense by her burst if you have the passive unlocked by leveling her up, so she's also a great option to run with Keqing, and once again, she's also Electro, so Keqing will actually help battery up Lisa, and Lisa will actually help battery up Keqing. And as for healers, you can always run Diona, because she will also help for physical DPS Keqings, and even electro damage dealing Keqings, because Diona is just super helpful. And then of course Bennett is Bennett, he will increase your damage by a crap ton no matter what team you're on, so Bennett is also a really good choice of course. And there we go, that's all you need to know about Keqing team building. You want to do a lot of off-field DPS because your charge attacks will be doing a lot of damage, but it is also really helpful to have some extra damage on top of that, especially if you're electro damage dealing Keqing, because that electro stiletto infusion will actually run out, and you'll have those 2.5 seconds of doing physical damage, where you're doing actually a lot less damage that you would normally do. So it's always great to have off-field DPS like Qingshou, Beidou, Lisa, Rosaria, and whatnot, to help you more over that low damage with some more damage from your other teammates. Y'all know what time it is. I think it's time for a little showcase. But as always, before we do that, I want to show you guys all my Keqing stats. My Keqing has an attack of 1634 with the elemental mastery of 54. She has a crit rate of 52.8 and crit damage of 207.9. She has energy recharge of 138.2 and electro damage bonus of 61.6%. Also, I am running an electro damage Keqing because I think that's the most fun playstyle, so your damage might be a little different if you are running physical DPS Keqings. Now I'm actually going to start this up and try to get everyone's burst up real quick, so I'll actually be right back. So I got up everybody's burst, so I'm going to proc Diona so I don't die, and I'm going to do electro infusions. 4k, 5k, 5k, so I'm doing 5k on a crit with my charge attacks if I do have my electro infusion. So that's pretty good damage if I want to do it over and over again, but now I'm going to do a full rotation on how I usually run my Keqing. So I'm going to pop Diona, Qingshou, I can help freeze them, pop Beidou, use my electro infusion, and I have a lot of damage going on to each other, and then pop her burst, and then that's basically my rotation. Pop all the bursts so I can do a lot of off-field DPS, and just enhance my damage I do at each charge attack, and it will do tons of damage. And Diona's here because she helps shield my Keqing, she helps heal me, and she also helps keep enemies in place while freezing them along with my Qingshou so that my charge attacks don't fling away the opponents. And there you go, that's all for my showcase. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this Keqing guide. I hope you guys now know what weapons, artifacts, teams, and talents to level up are your Keqings. Keqing is honestly so much fun. It kinda sucks that she's the least damage dealing 5-star in the game, but she has a huge fan base and a lot of people love her. And her playstyle is really unique. So anyway guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this Keqing guide. Let me know what other characters I should make guides on in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.